Hey everyone, this is Mr. Pratt with a video on how to use Onshape to begin drawing your final project. As you've probably realized in class, we spent some time deciding on what we're going to make for our final projects. And now as we're looking through some of the beginning steps of getting started, one of the things is to really visualize what is that final project going to look like. And so here I have on my screen an example of a end table that I have designed here using Onshape. And so I'm going to give you a few pointers to help you get started. But the goal here is really for you to kind of take the chance or take this opportunity to begin thinking about the dimensions that you have created or decided on in your parts list and seeing how those work together to create your final project. And then what we'll do is we'll take that drawing and be able to look at that a little bit more detail when it comes to sitting down with me to have your one-on-one meeting. So sit tight. If you are having issues with Onshape, the best thing to do would be to restart your computer. It is a web browser or program in your web browser, so understand there might be a little bit of a lag. But as you are watching this, if you want to complete one step and then pause the video, by all means do so. This is simply just to get you rolling in the right direction and how you can use Onshape for your final project. So I have a drawing up of an end table that I have designed in Onshape, and I'm going to show you how we get to this point. But first, we're going to start in our Part Studio. So in order to get to this screen that you're familiar with, remember you're going to have to create a new document. And so when you click on Onshape, it takes you back to that dashboard for the program. Hit the Create button, and again, it's going to be a document. You're going to see a screen that looks a lot like what I have here. Some of you are maybe familiar with Inventor, and so this might look a little familiar to you. For those of you that have had AutoCAD experience, we're going to look at the tools that might be similar to that in AutoCAD, but understand it is just like visualizing something in 2D, but in Onshape, we can then create that 3D object based on those 2D drawings. My recommendation as you begin in Onshape is to hide the front and the right plane unless you feel like you can draw a feature better in those planes. My suggestion is always to use the top plane for your drawings. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one visible. The other two, I just click the little eyeball there to hide those from being visible on the screen. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by drawing my top piece, as you see in this drawing here. And so I'm going to begin by using the square or the rectangle tool. So if I go back into my Part Studio, I'm going to begin by making a sketch. It asks me to select a sketch plane. I'm going to rotate this so that my plane is visible as just my top view. I don't need it to be an isometric view. And there's a lot of different drawing tools that you can use in this program. Some of the ones that are going to be the most commonly used are going to be the rectangle tool, the line tool. You might use a circle tool for something. This is our trim tool, which you probably remember in AutoCAD using. This is the offset button, which again looks very similar to AutoCAD as well, which I think is going to be very helpful for some of the things that you draw in this class and in this using this program. Something that's become very popular is the sketch fillet option, which creates that radius, a very popular tool in Onshape. Not something that we necessarily use a lot in AutoCAD, but in Onshape it's become very easy and user friendly. And then of course there's always that dimension tool, which you might find yourself using at various times throughout your project. So for this project, I'm going to be using just the line, the rectangle tool, and the offset tool for the most part. I'm going to begin by making my first sketches, which is going to be my top. So let me click on the rectangle tool here, select my first corner, drag my cursor to create that square shape. And it doesn't have to be exact, so what I'm going to do is put in my dimensions now. Do not left click on the dimension. If you do, that'll lock in the dimensions that are there and it'll begin drawing a new rectangle or square. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply type in my numbers without clicking anything and hitting enter. And that locks in my first number, and then I'll put in my second one here, and you can see how that comes into play. From here then, I'm going to go ahead and confirm my sketch. So this would be my green check mark, and we're going to go ahead and create a 3D top for our table here. To do this, my recommendation is always being in isometric view. It makes things easier to see. This icon next to the sketch button is called extrude, and when you click on that, we first have to select a face or a sketch that we created. So in this case, it's our top piece, or that square that we just drew. I'm going to select that, and it creates a shaded object here, which almost creates that 3D replication of what the top piece might look like. And I know that in my parts list, I wanted my top piece to be 3/4 in thickness. So I'm going to type in 0.75, and I'm going to hit enter. And you can see how that adjusts my thickness. And if I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and click on the green check mark, which creates that 3D rendering of our top. So now what I can do is I can go back into my top view. So I'm looking at this from the top, and I can begin a new sketch. However, my next sketch, or my next item I'm going to draw, is going to be my legs. And this really needs to be on the bottom side of my top plane, if that makes any sense to you. So looking at this, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate my object so I'm looking at the bottom, and you can click on the bottom of the cube here to help you. And so now I'll begin my sketch for my legs. Now I think it's easiest to, if you'd like to draw on graph paper and then bring this into Onshape, that's definitely a possibility. But you need to be able to visualize what is the final result going to look like when it comes to your final project. So here I have my second sketch started. It's asking me to select my sketch plane, which again is still my top, but I'm looking at it from the bottom side. And so that way the legs come down and not up. What we'll do first is begin drawing some lines. These are going to be construction lines. These are simply just here to help us understand where we want our legs to be. So I'm going to just go ahead and draw some boxes or some lines around the outside perimeter of our top piece. And I'm going to use those lines to then offset. So I'm going to use the offset tool there. If you hit enter, you can then choose what you want that to be. So I know that the legs on my drawing here, they're 1 inch in, so I have 1 inch overhang all the way around for my top. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that dimension, type in 1, and you can see how that offset that 1 inch. I'm going to continue doing that all the way around. Make sure you have the arrow going the right direction before you hit enter. Type in 1, and now I can see how this is coming together here. Type in enter, or hit enter, type in 1, enter again, and I have one more line that I'm going to offset here. It's really important that you pay attention to the offset direction. If you offset the wrong way, obviously that's going to impact your ability to draw. Now I'm going to go ahead and begin drawing my legs. So this is something that I would look at. All right, I know the position where I want my legs to be for my project, but how big do they need to be? So this is where you look at your parts list for that. So here I have my starting point for my first leg. I'm going to type in 1.5 because that's the thickness. And if you notice something like this happens where it says sketch could not be solved, that means you've over-dimensioned everything. And so what that means is we need to undo that. So I'm going to refix this. And same thing. There we go. I have an 1.5 inch square leg, or at least the beginning of that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Uh-oh. Something is saying that I did something wrong again. So let's just go back. Let's try that one more time. There we go. And so now I have 2 of my legs, and just to keep things short and sweet, I would do that 2 more times, but I'm going to go ahead and continue on. So now what I'm going to do is just clean up my drawing a little bit. I liked it to be as neat as possible. So I don't need all of these lines, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick delete of the construction lines that I don't need any longer. And when I'm happy with those dimensions and where the placement of those legs could be, I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark, and we're going to extrude. And so I'm going to put this back in isometric. You can see the arrow is pointing down. In this case, I'm looking at my parts list, and I want these legs of my project to be 20 inches. So I'm going to hit enter after I type in 20, and you can start to see how that works out. Again, I would obviously have two more squares there that would represent the face of a leg. But in this case, I'm just going to make it a little bit quicker of a demo for you. I'm going to hit the green check mark when I'm happy with that. Now, the only thing I'm missing would be like my side support here, right? So how am I going to attach these pieces together? And so I could draw that in there and create that part as well in this 3D rendering. And so that's what this looks like here. So I'll just show you real quickly how I would do that in Onshape. So again, I'm looking at the bottom view, and I'm going to start a new sketch again. And this time, I'm going to select my plane, choose my line tool one more time, and again, I'm going to use this as my construction line. So I'll use the offset icon here. Offset that. So I want my side supports, or what we call aprons, to be in the center of the leg. And so there's a couple ways you could do this. You could offset a line so that it's in the center of this 1.5 inch dimension that I have for my leg square. Or if you did the math, you could figure out that there's a 3/8 gap or offset on both sides of my apron there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and I'm going to type in 0.375, hit enter again, and now I'm going to offset that line. So if I hit enter and type in 0.75, because that's the thickness of what I have in my parts list, I can now go ahead and delete what I don't need, hit the green check mark, and I can extrude this. So again, I like to be in that isometric view. And my side supports are going to be 3 inches in width. And when I'm happy with that, I can hit the green check mark. And so now I can see, all right, here's what I got so far, right? This is going to be able to help me figure out how would I assemble this side support with my to my legs, and how am I going to attach my top piece to the rest of that frame. So as you are beginning to use Onshape as a resource to draw your project and to visualize this, keep in mind, what are your thoughts on how you're going to assemble your project? This is something you're going to need to come to the meeting prepared to discuss with me. If you have plans already generated, my suggestion would be to use those generated plans as a guide in figuring out how you're going to assemble your project. I hope that this video is helpful, and please feel free to review this as much as possible in order to draw in Onshape.